Okay, so I'm Sister Hollingshead, and this is Sister Savala. And we were companions for, how long were we companions for?
4 months and a half.
4.5 months, yep. In the Oaxaca, Mexico mission in an area called Fortin. And we're going to share a story about one of our investigators with you.
Yeah, so there was this one night that it was almost the end of the day. I think we only had like 8 minutes or so to be home. And we were just walking, and we were walking by this street that wasn't that, like, there wasn't a lot of light in that street. But
It was scary.
but we could still walk there. So we were walking, and I told my companion, hey, let's go knock this door.
I was like, no, let's not.
And then she's like,
it was dark, and it was dark on the inside, and it was kind of down a little bit, and it was
yeah,
just
and then
nervous.
there was kind of like a dog outside. I'm
Big
really
black dog.
usually scared of dogs, but I really wanted. I felt like we really needed to knock on that door, and I was just like, let's just go for it. So we went, and my companion was kind of like right there, kind of hesitant to get closer, and I was like, come on. So we knocked the door, and then we knocked the door, and you could hear kind of like a little bit of music in the background, but nobody was answering. So then we knocked again, and then someone came out like towards the door, and then it was Jorge. It was George.
Yep. And I don't know if I can call him George. I think I just have to call him Jorge.
Yeah.
Jorge, he's a man. He had kind of longer hair, about to here, dark hair, a little bit scruffy beard, and he was in a wheelchair. He was missing part of one of his legs, and yeah, he was kind of it was like a one-room house, and his bed was on one side. He had his music playing on a little dresser over on the other side, and over on this side, he fixed like motorbikes and stuff like that. He was a mechanic, anyway.
So his hands were like dark, like black because of the
Black.
oil and his face. And so we introduced ourselves with him, and we asked him. We told him that we were missionaries and that we had a message that we wanted to share with him, but that it was a little late and we wanted to come back another day. So he accepted. We set an appointment to be able to go visit him. And then it happened. The day came, and we went to his home, and we started teaching him.
And that first lesson went very well. He was so open to listening to us. He was already listening to missionaries from a different religion, but he was definitely willing to listen to more because he knew anything that came from God was good, so that he would listen to it. We shared with him a Book of Mormon, and we shared with him some experiences, and just he shared with us a little bit about his life. And instantly, we just fell in love with him. He was so awesome. He was so good. We started to invite him to read in the Book of Mormon, and he took that challenge very seriously.
Yeah, and we also invited him to church. And even though he had a wheelchair and it was kind of complicated for him to go to church, he was so excited about it from the beginning. And this is where members come in. And we needed help with the members to be able to take him to church. And he was so excited to go to church. The first Sunday that we went, we were kind of like, is he really going to come, or is he, And so we knocked the door, and there he was. He was ready. He was just waiting for us, and then we're like, okay, let's go. He told us that he really loved the church, and that whenever it was Sunday and he was waiting for us to go get him for church, he just felt like a little kid, so excited, like when they're going to go to the movies or to the park. He said that he just felt so happy and so joyful to be able to go to church. And it was such a blessing to be able to see someone so excited and so ready to receive the gospel in that time of his life.
Yeah, and by this point, I'm feeling bad because, remember, I was hesitant to talk or to go down the street or to talk or knock on this door. And so that's where companionship comes in because it's really important that you both have, you both are following the Spirit. And I'm really glad that at that time my companion was listening to the Spirit and she felt that need to go. The same revelation doesn't always come to the two of you. Sometimes one companion gets one part and one companion gets the other part. So you've got to work with each other on that. He would come to church and he would go to our classes and he would just talk about how much, he would just be so involved in every lesson. He would apply everything to his life. Not only would he read it, but he would apply it. We would talk about charity, and he would start applying charity into his life, or just depending on what the lesson was. And he came for a few weeks. And through this whole time, he is like constantly reading the scriptures. We tell him to read, let's have you read from this verse to this verse in this chapter, and he would read 3 chapters. We invited him to start reading at the beginning of the Book of Mormon, and he started reading, and he read like 8 chapters in one day. It was crazy. He loved it. And it came to a point where he was still listening to the other missionaries from the other religion and then to us, and he started to see that the doctrines started to clash, and he had to decide which one he was going to listen to and which one felt correct. So he, of course, we're always encouraging him to pray, and he did. And he prayed to ask which one he needed to do. And he felt strongly that he needed to tell the other missionaries that he wasn't going to continue listening to them, that he found something that he felt was right for him. And so he continued to listen to us.
Yeah, and something really important that we forgot to mention is that since the first time that we visited him, we invited him to be baptized. And he accepted, a little hesitant. He's like, well, if I'm ready, I'm not sure. I'm already listening to someone. But he kind of accepted that if he felt like it was true, he would be baptized. So when we set an appointment, they usually have to go 5 Sundays before to be able to be baptized. And so he was going like Sunday after Sunday. So we were like, looks like he's ready. So we were like, we have weekly plannings, and we were talking about it. We were like, we can actually move his baptism a little earlier. So we were in the lesson. We had invited a member, and then we were teaching him. And then we were like, we prayed about a few things, and we feel like you're ready. And you can actually be baptized sooner than the appointment, than the date that we had set. So we want to invite you to be baptized sooner than what we had planned. They were silent for a moment, and we were just like, so what's going to happen now? Is like, what's going to happen? I was kind of afraid that he was going to be scared about it and be like, you know what, you guys just want me to be baptized. But we asked him, and then he said, that's the answer that I was looking for, he said. And I was like, what? That's the answer that you were looking for?
He had also been praying about it, too.
And so he accepted, and we made the plans. And so there was actually one Sunday he was feeling sick, so he didn't go. So he didn't go five times to church. But we asked for permission to the district leaders and to the mission president, and they were like, okay, we're going to make this exemption. And it's okay. You guys can follow on that, and he can be baptized.
If you feel he's ready, then he can definitely be baptized. And we felt he was ready for sure. And he felt he was ready, and it was great. So.
Yeah, and to get in his baptism, it took us like 2 hours because of his wheelchair, like trying to like get him in the water, and how were we going to baptize him. We had to put a chair. It was kind of like a challenge. There weren't a lot of members in his baptism, but it was such a tender and a beautiful day to be able to see him be baptized. He was so excited, and he was so happy. If you could see the picture of him before his baptism and afterwards, you wouldn't even believe that it's the same person.
Yeah, he in the picture before, he was smiling, but he wasn't showing his teeth. He was just, I think, a little bit nervous for his baptism and things like that. But afterward, he just had this huge smile on his face. And, of course, we're beaming, too. We're just so excited for him. And his baptism was one of the most incredible experiences I had, just because there were very few mortal beings there. But I could definitely feel that there was many people in heaven who were rejoicing, and many people who were there with us, just so excited for their family to join the church, somebody from their family. And the Spirit was so strong. And we sang a musical number that we had never before heard of. He chose it from the hymn book, and we learned it, and we sang it. And it was so good. It was an amazing baptism. And the next Sunday, he was confirmed the day after. And again, it was a struggle because he's in a wheelchair and he wasn't feeling very good, but he went. He made that effort. And he's like, I'm going. And so he came, and he was confirmed the next Sunday. And another wonderful experience to watch him be confirmed.
Yeah, that was really sweet. And you'd think that that's where the story ends, but this story actually has more to it. And Jorge really helped me strengthen my testimony of the gospel and especially of the plan of salvation. Um, the next Sunday, we went to knock his door to take him to church. And he just comes out and he's like, I'm sorry, sisters, I'm feeling sick. And we're like, you're feeling sick? Okay. And I was like, oh, was he just getting baptized and now he's not going to listen to us? And I was like, why? Why does this happen? But anyways, in that part of our mission, my companion and I were, how do you say this in English?
Sister training leaders?
Sister training leaders. So we would have splits, divisions. So I was in another area with two sister missionaries, and my companion stayed in the area with another missionary. And so I was
Tuesday.
gone. It was on a Tuesday. And then so I was already gone. I was carrying my clothing to go to the other area. I was with the missionaries. And then all of a sudden I receive a call from my companion.
Yeah, and a few minutes before I called her, I had received a call from our ward mission leader. He's an older man, absolutely amazing, so
best
good.
ward
Best,
missionary.
yeah, best ward mission leader ever. And he called me, and because he was worried about Jorge, and he said, Sister Halling said, can you sit down for a second? Are you in a position that you can sit down and just listen to me for a little bit? And I sat down and I was like, yeah, I can do that. We hadn't left the apartment yet. We were just getting ready to leave. And he said, I just wanted to let you know that Jorge passed away this morning. And I was in shock. Of course, I was like, what? I didn't quite understand. I asked him to repeat what he said because I was worried that I had not understood right in English or in Spanish. And so I wanted him to repeat it. So I asked him again. He said, Jorge passed away this morning. He was in the hospital, and of course, I was in complete shock, and I asked him to kind of tell me what he found out or how he found out. And like I said, best ward mission leader ever. He was worried for Jorge, so he went over to his house the day before to go look for him, and nobody was there. And he just kept knocking and just waiting for a little while. His dog, Jorge's big black dog, was outside and just waiting there, and that's unusual because usually it's inside with Jorge. And so he asked a lady that lived kind of in front. He said, he's like, have you seen him recently? Do you know where he is? And this lady said, yeah, the ambulance came to pick him up last night. And of course, this whole time I'm listening to this, and I'm like, tears are starting to fall. I'm still in shock of what's going on. And he said that he went to the hospital, or the lady said that he went to the hospital that evening with an ambulance, and that and she said, I don't know very much, but I know that he used to work down the street in this mechanic shop, and you can go and ask them. So our ward mission leader walks over there with his cane. He's just walking over there to the mechanic shop down the street, and he goes and asks them, and they tell him that he had been in the hospital all evening and that he had passed away this morning. And he's like, I just barely got home to call you and tell you that this has happened. At this point, I'm bawling. I can't control my emotions. And one of the sisters, we were on splits, like Sister Zavala said, and she was just there comforting me. She didn't quite understand what was going on and just rubbing my back, making sure I'm okay. I of course hang up and I call Sister Zavala right away. And I'm very impressed with Sister Zavala for the way she responded to this. She's already out proselyting, and she, with the two other sister missionaries, and I asked if I could talk to her, and I got her on the phone, and I told her that kind of what the ward mission leader told me. And she, of course, she's just silent for a second, and you can tell she's getting emotional, but she's trying to stay strong, and, because she's on splits with sister missionaries, and she needs to stay strong, so she said thank you, and she said, okay, we'll talk more when I get home, but thank you for letting me know. And she kept working hard that whole day, and I got back on my feet, and I was like, okay, I can do this, like Sister Zavala. I can get up and I can start doing this. And so I got up and started working again. We had a lot of appointments that day, so we started going to our appointments, and I'm in and out of tears through the day, but I'm trying to stay committed. Like Sister Savala, she was kind of my rock in that moment, so that was good. And that evening, we went by his house, and his nephew was there a few times. We had taught his nephew along with him, who's actually who was inactive, and he was there, and he came up and he's just like, thank you so much for all you did for him. And it was just really cool to see someone who's inactive suddenly become closer to the church, along with his mom too. His mom came over and talked to us, and she's also inactive, and she was just thank you so much. And she actually went to church that next Sunday which was absolutely awesome.
Yeah, and I remember when my companion called me, I remember that I felt really, really sad that day. And I was just like, wow. It was the second time that I had lost someone in the mission that I was teaching. And I remember that I just knelt down and I did a prayer, and I was like, please help me that I can continue to work today and be a good example for the sisters and help them. In that, I had never in my life felt the reality of the plan of salvation before as strong as in that moment. I was so grateful for having the knowledge that death is not the end. I did miss him. I think that I don't know how many nights I've cried whenever I think about him, but I immediately just smile knowing that it is not the end. And I know that it was the way that Heavenly Father taught us that there's a time for everyone, and that if we do what He tells us to do, everything will be fine. And our decisions truly affect others. I know that this life does not begin when we're born, and it does not end when we die. And I know that Sister Hollingshead and I, we're going to have an opportunity to see him again. And this time he's going to have his full leg. And this time we're going to be able to hug him. I know that families can be together, and that the atonement of Jesus Christ makes life happier and gives us hope. And I am so grateful for having the opportunity to be a sister missionary and to continue to be a sister missionary after my mission. And I invite you to follow His Spirit, and you never know when you can find your own George in the mission.
I agree completely with what she said. And afterward, we were talking about it, and she had come home from the splits, and we were just both sitting there kind of, both had come to the realization that this was an opportunity for us both to fully understand the atonement and the plan of salvation. The atonement helped both of us in that time just to feel peace, and knowing that Christ is always there for us, and the plan of salvation helped us to know that we'll see Him again, and that we're all one big happy family, and that things happen, but everything will be okay in the end. We were doing the math afterward when we were together, and we had realized that we both felt very strongly after praying and talking about it that he needed to move up his date. And if we had not felt that, and if he had not felt that, if we had waited even any longer, he would not have been able to be baptized before he had passed away. He had some health issues that he did not tell us about. He had diabetes, and then he had a few other problems. He passed away from kidney failure. And all these things we didn't know about him, but we did follow the Spirit in that time, and we knew that he needed to move his baptismal date up, and he knew it. And so he was baptized, confirmed, and then he was ready. He was ready to go back home. And the Lord's timing is perfect. And we just got to accept it and be happy with it, knowing that God has a perfect plan. So, we just both really want to testify that the plan of salvation is real. God has a plan for us and for everyone else that we're teaching. And He wants us to be happy, and true happiness comes from serving others.
And we share these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.